And I'll check my sound here. Let me see if I've got, yep, I'm getting some sound and we'll get ready to go here. I see I've got a few of you, and I'm sure I could have created some confusion today by not having sent out the link on an earlier basis, but ready to be here tonight. And we will probably about an hour, hour and a half at the very most, I think maybe 2 hours. So that was why I'd said anyone who was coming here ground-based, you really needed to come. I'm here in Oklahoma City just simply because I feel like I needed to in case someone showed up. Anyway, we'll get started here, and I know we got a couple of us, and if you will have a few more join. This is a plenary session, and I was wanting, of course, everyone to be here. So I'm going to pop over here to the Canvas room. Of course, this is week 8, final week of the course, and we have a business movies exercise and instructions for that, and then what I was expecting. So I'm going to wait a few more minutes, and as I'm sure people will join as we get rolling, and I'll talk a little bit about why I've included this exercise in the course, how I think it fits. And then we'll go and I'll take a look using the speed grader, look at what different people have done. And then I might even share my response to the assignment. I did it, and I responded with my 5 movies. And maybe I have mentioned it to some of you. I have been taking a MOOC this summer that's sponsored by Turner Classic Movies and Ball State University on Hitchcock, the 50-year incredible career of Alfred Hitchcock, and it is an absolute unbelievable treat. Every Wednesday and Friday night in the month of July has been just incredible, and I know this week will be fantastic. And learning some things about those movies and movie business that I never knew, rediscovering some of those things that I'd seen but never really understood what I was seeing. But it's been a great course. But I've over the years, I've taught a course called Management Goes to the Movies. I've offered it at different places where I've been, and it's always been very, very well received. And I think we'll talk about why I've included this here. We've got, I guess, 6 or 7 minutes, and I know that I see how many of us are on board. I see 2 of us, and I'll pop in here to see who that is. Yeah, glad to see you here. Yang Ping is here, and I'm sure we'll have some others who will join us. It's going to be interesting to see how everybody responds or responded to the exercise, and I think it'll be fun. So we'll go from there. As I said, we've got about 5 minutes or so, and then we'll get started. I just sent the link out to everybody, so I'm sure people are going into their email or looking at their phone and getting ready to get involved. I'll get my sound all the way up here. See, we've been joined by Taylor. Hi, Taylor. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing great. I was a little bit late sending the link out to everybody, so we'll get started here in about 4, maybe 5 minutes, and we'll talk about kind of the rationale for why I included this exercise, and then we will. I'm going to go through the speed grader and take a look, and then at the end, I'm going to share with everybody what I did in terms of the assignment. So my apologies to the 2 of you and everyone else for being tardy in getting this out here. Should be recording. I'll make sure that we are. Yeah. Well, we're close enough. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I know we'll have some others join us. Three others. Let's see. I've got hi, Colin. Good to see you here as well. And I know we'll have others join us as we go along. This week is, of course, the last week, and I've included this business movies exercise. Got the instructions, and I want to briefly talk about why I've included this exercise. What was the purpose for doing it? And the first of all, on a bigger, I guess, in terms of looking at this exercise, and anybody out there, you may want to put your put yourself on mute. But one of the things I wanted to do is kind of unpeel the onion, if you will, in this exercise. And the very first just goes really to the core of what I believe is what good managers do, and what we know that managers do. And managers spend a lot of time observing things. They spend a lot of time absorbing a lot of inputs. And the classic study that was done was by a man named Mintzberg, who was an anthropologist, and who found that managers spend about 70 to 80% of their time inputting data and information. And so I've used the business movies exercise. Like I said before, I've taught a course called Management Goes to the Movies, an entire course. And I think it's good to use this as an engaging way to increase our powers of observation and our way to try to find some linkages between what we learn in the classroom and what we see out in real life. And movies can often present for us some great depictions of a situation, of a company with a richness that you just can't get out of a case study in a book. So that's in terms of making us all better managers. I think that's the number one thing. The second is to make everyone a little more aware that management and business in many ways is a performance art, just like movies are a performance art. And I think it's good for us to dissect these scenes. And there are a lot of really good books out there that are very, very non-technical that can help you learn how to watch a movie and get a lot more out of it than you usually would. And I can tell you over the years, as I've taught that course, Management Goes to the Movies, and as I've learned about the movie business and learned about how films are made and the things and all that stuff, I've just grown a greater appreciation and for films and what they're all about. But certainly, many films deal with the issues that we deal with in business and have a lot to say, and it gives us a perspective of people out there in the world and how they see and they perceive us. So I think it's a useful exercise for us, and I think one of the ways to do it in a very engaging way. And I found students who took usually I'd offer that Management Goes to the Movies course during J term and during summer. And I found that students, undergraduate or graduate, really enjoyed it because they were able to take something that was entertainment and put it into a deeper context or see a deeper context of it. It also allowed me to kind of weave in some of the story of the motion picture industry in the United States and how it's evolved, because it's followed many of the same patterns that have evolved in business in general. And so it's a way for me also to focus on an industry that's of interest to almost everybody in one way or the other, and to let us learn about some more about how industries behave. And I think it's important for us to see that. Well, I had some instructions for us, and in addition to just those general kinds of things, I had the exercises also to give you an opportunity to do some more work as an end user with some databases. And there in that in number 4 in the instructions, I asked you to, I said, go URL to the movies data over at IMBD, which is the Internet Movie Database, Turner's movie database, and then there's the Open Movie Database. There are several of them out there. Those are the 3 that I haunt, the ones that I find the most useful and the most helpful. Now, bear in mind, when you go to them, they're peddling products. They're trying to get you to buy stuff. So it's as much a commercial site as it is maybe an artistic site. But certainly, I want to get you, hopefully, as you interacted with those and you did searches, you saw some new things, or you saw how to use those databases or what was behind them in a different way. And so I'm hoping that you came into them with maybe a sharper set of eyes. There are also some databases out there that are starting to develop in terms of our ability to catalog scenes. And so and one of those places, I think, obviously, is YouTube, but there are people who are building databases that are let you, you can put in an open search term and go find a scene, a particular 2 or 3 minutes from a given motion picture. So I wanted to let you to familiarize you some with that industry, and it's one that is deeply, deeply, deeply enmeshed now with information technology. In fact, it almost has been. Really, it's grown up with the first set of pictures. Really, what was happening, the very first motion pictures, was really digitizing photographs, and literally, as film developed, is really just taking bits and bytes in one format, and eventually now they've transferred over. And you go to a movie in IMAX or somewhere like that now, you're looking at basically a digital product. And of course, when you see the movies and how they're presented and what they offer, you could see particularly things like animation, special effects, all done with computers. Pixar Studios, which at one time was owned and run by Steve Jobs after he left Apple, really were the first people who made a big push in animation and using computers for effect and for special effects. So that industry now, my interest has been really more around the content and the distribution of that content, how it's been distributed, and of course, I've seen, particularly with what one would call old movies, I've seen the evolution of them from the time when they were kind of a backwater. Those properties were something that people showed on a local station at 12 o'clock at night or whatever, to now they have become kind of their own genre, and there's a whole industry that's built up around those kinds of films, just as there are with the films now, the current attractions. But I wanted to let you have a chance to go in and look at those databases and see them, perceive the forms that are there and the drop-down menus and all of that. So that was a piece of it, is to let you utilize the database. Then also to do some more searching, okay, to go over to Amazon, find some books, links to books that are about those movies. And again, as I've said, IT is so important because information resources are infinitely malleable. They can be transformed and used in many, many ways. And so as an intellectual property, they're exceptionally valuable. And you could see a movie with a book. What we experience now, with things like, the latest Disney movie comes out and they have toys galore for kids. Okay, have toys around the movie. They'll have some type of product. That's something that really started to hit its stride in the 1980s and the 1990s when motion picture companies discovered that they had another cash stream or revenue stream they could make. So they, in addition to this business of animation and using computer special effects and eventually replacing movie houses where movie houses no longer get a big reel of film like they used to. Now they get that stuff downloaded from the internet, and they plug it into a computer projector, and away they go. But this movement of having all these toys and things, it was kind of, they adopted it from what was happened a lot back in the 1950s. Some of the programs on television, like the Lone Ranger, Daniel Boone, they had products that they sold, and this was to generate additional cash flows. And the reason is that the movie business had become much more, it's a far riskier business than it used to be, because it's moved away from an industrial kind of format, a big production format, to a very entrepreneurial project type of format, where people, like a Tom Hanks has his own studio, different stars have their own production companies. And so they are in many ways entrepreneurs. And so they're looking for any revenue streams and any product tie-ins, et cetera, that they can generate. So if you watch a movie today and you see, a Ford Explorer in the movie, the Ford Explorer is paying somebody a product placement ad, because that's what they do. And even the locales, New York City, for example, or any major city in the United States, the state of Oklahoma does this, are now paying movie companies to come and set up shop, giving them tax breaks and incentives. And in the past 10 years, Hollywood has diminished in terms of its ability. Its market share has been cut by about 30% in terms of the movies that are produced there, the television shows that are produced there, as well as advertisements, which are the real money makers. And a key piece of this has been digital technology that's allowed people to set up a virtual studio, do editing on a long distance basis, and really not be too worried about, I've got to be in Los Angeles in order to get to a sound stage. With the technologies that exist today, you can do all those kinds of things that you can do today. So I thought it'd be some interesting insights about that industry. And of course, people are always, I don't know anybody who doesn't like the movies or have a movie that's a favorite. And I ask you to go in and get some films from YouTube, which is, again, YouTube is a database. They are a content aggregator, slowly moving themselves into a position where YouTube has networks, they have advertising, and they're moving themselves into a position where, you want to go see a movie, you want to see an old television show, whatever, you want to hear music, you want that type of thing, you want to see rare videos, that's the place to go. So I encourage you to go over there. But YouTube is essentially a database. And as I said at the start of the course, this is how that IT has affected the creation of businesses. The notion that a company is essentially has a database as a model is just something that just really wasn't in the minds of people before. And so that was one of the things I wanted to give you an opportunity to see the different ways and different venues that you could learn. You could get a book, go see the movie clip, get reviews, etc. All that stuff, that information's out there, and that's how these digital products, these pieces of intellectual property, have a life that carries them far beyond where they ever were. Anytime, for example, that Gone with the Wind is shown on maybe network television will occasionally show it, but I think Turner has the rights to it. There will be more people see that movie than saw it when it was put for exhibition originally, which is a startling thing to think about. And so the value of those properties just builds. And this is part of this thing of this notion that information technology comes from a proposition of plenitude, what they call plenitude, as opposed to scarcity. That I can take I can take information, I can make it malleable, I can change it into different formats, I can do different things with it. and that offers me some real opportunity. So that was one of the, those are the instructions there. I asked you to go and find 5 movies and a brief paragraph, a synopsis on the key points or themes, and then your ratings on those movies. So nothing really terribly bad there or really difficult to do, but I wanted you to have a chance, and hopefully, and I would encourage you again. I think that the arts, particularly movies, and if we'd been doing this course 40 years ago, I just said, here's some great plays, some things on Broadway that you ought to study and look at that depict some of the issues surrounding business and surrounding a life of enterprise and what that's all about. And so and it's good for us again. I think it's good for us to use these tools to sharpen our powers of observation, but also they have a way to dramatize for us or to make us think and reflect on what we do. We, those of us who are managers, and I'm talking to all of us here, are a relatively new phenomena on the world stage. We haven't been around that long. Prior to us, business was conducted by craftspeople, by farmers, by traders. You didn't have big global companies. You didn't have professional managers who managed somebody's company. They didn't exist. The closest thing probably was the Middle Ages. You had the bankers, the Medici bankers are probably the most famous, who handled financial transactions, but they didn't run anybody's business. So our ability to look and to step back from what we do for a living and think about it is an extremely valuable piece for us. And I think there are a lot of great movies out there and a lot of great ways to learn some very engaging material. And as I said before, I've taught a class, Management Goes to the Movies, for many years, and I find that students really get a lot out of it in terms of just sharpening their powers of observation and looking at the stories and seeing those stories brought to us in a way that's a little more engaging than maybe just sitting in a dry case and looking at it. Well, I'm going to go over here to the grades part, and I'm going to put on let's see, I'm going to look over here for the grades, and I'm going to go take a look at the speed grader is what I want to look at. Let me go back over here for just a second. And here we are. I'd ask everybody to upload these. There we go. And I'm going to pop through some of these. I'm sure there are going to be some really good ones. This is one, and this is Bryce submitted this. Thank you, Bryce. Very interesting. I agree. I think that Godfather is a fantastic story of a family-owned business, and there's so much there. And you've got some great links on the books here. Yeah. It's amazing when you look at that. I love this. This is a great job, Bryce. You did a fantastic job. Corporate takeovers, friendly and hostile. Boy, is that the truth. Mergers and acquisitions. And as you see that movie as it evolves, it's interesting as you see Michael Corleone try to move it more to a corporate model and really get them into the money laundering business for all intents and purposes. He gave it a rating of a 4. I think it's a great one. Office Space, there's another excellent movie, some good URLs for them. And I'd ask everybody to give us a YouTube clip. I'm going to click on, let's go back over here to the Godfather. Of course, the Godfather is one of those that has all these incredible kinds of every movie has that's really well received well has some kind of thing that someone says. My favorite in the Godfather is leave the gun and take the grimoire.
On your computer, you need to get Grammarly. I write pretty much all day, every day. And
we'll skip the ad. Here we are.
Thought I'd come up though. I'll give you anything you ask. We've known each other many years, but this is the first time you ever came to the council for help. I can't remember the last time that you invited me to your house for a cup of coffee. even though my wife was godmother to your only child. But let's be frank here. You never wanted my friendship. And you were afraid to be in my debt.
I didn't want to get into trouble.
I understand. You found paradise in America. Had a good trade, made a good living. Police protected you, and there were courts of law. You didn't need a friend. But
Of course, this one is a great clip, and it ends with this man. I believe his daughter had been attacked. That the Godfather has the famous line, if I'm not mistaken, about this clip, where he ends up saying, "Someday I'll ask you to do something for me, and you will do it." So it's interesting, and corporations are inhabited by some of those types. This is, I think, a great choice by Bryce's part. Office Space is another one. Excellent movie. And I think you're right. He's got some things about culture, corporate culture, mentoring, career development, a whole series of things that are embedded in that movie. It's a good job, nicely done. The Usual Suspects, that is, again, I think one of an excellent choice. It is a fantastic suspense movie, and it's got all kinds of twists and turns, and gives you a sense of a lot about corporate life. One of the probably one of the most interesting things I ever had happen to me personally was I worked in an organization where I ended up supervising someone who then ended up supervising me. And that can happen in small companies or in some organizations where you have some types of fluidity. So you can get those usual twists and turns. This is quite good. Smartest Guys in the Room is an excellent movie. Wow, what can you say about this story of this business scandal and the story of Enron, which is a real tragedy? And that movie, I think, does one of the greatest jobs I've ever seen take apart a business scandal and really put it into perspective. Wall Street's another one, great one. 1987, fantastic movie. And of course, The Market Never Sleeps is one of the great sayings from, and Greed is Good. And that movie really caught the spirit of that age where where people were starting to treat corporations like an ATM as opposed to a way to provide business and services, and the change that occurred in business with the rise of financial managers and CFOs. Thank you, Bryce. Nice job. Very good. And I'm going to go on to the next one. Let's take a look and see who we got here. This is Robert Carney. Let's see what Robert came up with. He's got his project. We'll see if we can get that to open up for us. Don't see anything there. Maybe that may be on my end. And here, oh, look at what Stephanie did. Stephanie's got some legend. Okay, the Jobs. That's an interesting movie. I've seen it, and I need to see it a few more times, I think, to really digest it. I think Stephen Jobs is one of the most intriguing figures in business, and I think this is an excellent movie. You've got some great resources here in terms of the YouTube clip, some books that are out there about the movie. It's listing over an IMDb, and it's one of those movies that will have to grow on me. But I think he's an intriguing figure, and we've all been lucky to have been able to live and see him evolve. And of course, it's very unfortunate, his untimely death. Yes, I see someone asked me a question here. I wasn't, but I'll go back here in just a minute, Robert, and take a shot at it. So thanks. Yeah, I took a shot and couldn't get it, but I'll try to open it again. And so that's a good choice, Stephanie. Let's scroll on down some more. We've got another. There's the one to YouTube, and rating on that. She gave it a 4. And and some nice commentary here about Jobs and who he was. And he's a very complex figure, but I say we're lucky because if the good Lord tarries 100 years from now, he and I think Gates and will be, certainly I think Jobs will be one of those legendary, iconic figures like today when we talk about Rockefeller or Vanderbilt or the robber barons. He really did change things. Here's another one, The Social Network. Again, Stephanie, this is one, and everybody, that I've seen. I've seen it a couple of times, and I kind of have to let it digest on me. I think it's interesting because it's about that company, but obviously it's about Zuckerberg and how he just kind of got this idea and fell into it. And I can't remember the name of the twins that he had the fight with over the ownership of the company. Then he had another person whose name is still on the masthead who had but that intrigue of what happens with an entrepreneur and then how venture capitalists come in and alliances get formed and all that is incredible. But it's an excellent movie. I think there are going to be some more movies about Facebook or its uses, but a nice job here. Good choice. Very, very good choice. The Pursuit of Happiness, that's one. It's an interesting movie. I think that it's a Columbia back from 2006, and I saw it. And again, it's one of these I'm going to have to see a few more times to fully digest it. I'm one of those people, I have to watch a movie. Very seldom do I watch a movie and really digest all of it. I have to see them several times. And as I mentioned, I've been taking that MOOC on Hitchcock that's offered by TCM. All of those movies, especially the ones from the 50s, his so-called golden age, I've seen all of them probably a dozen times. And every time I watch, I see something different, which tells you how rich they are. So this is a good choice, Stephanie. I've got books and a YouTube clip. Yeah. And the idea of never giving up, always staying in. Yeah, that's an excellent movie. And like I said before, it's one of those, I'm going to have to see it again. And it is one of those things of how do people deal with the tragedy in their life. And it's interesting that you were attracted to this movie, Stephanie. And Steve Jobs, there was a documentary, a book done about him, or a documentary, but I remember Steve Jobs was such a goal-oriented person that the last few months of his life, he had one goal, and that was to walk to the park near his home and to walk back. And he was that type of person. So this story of this man who's endured this tragedy is again, I think, trying to deal through that. And it makes us think, people we work with are human beings. They're living through things. How does that affect them? And if we're managing people or being managed by people, we need to always be mindful of that. The Dallas Buyers Club is another very, very interesting movie. I've seen it once. I really had to do some hard thinking about it, but I think it has some interesting insights for us. There's a good clip from YouTube, and of course I believe this is one that Matthew, what's the guy? Well, I forget his last name. He won an Academy Award for it, and he is absolutely fantastic. He inhabited that character. This is a good choice because it talks about folks' personal choices and how that impacts their lives, and again, we live, companies are inhabited by people, and we see this as a good choice. A very controversial product. One that is a parallel to me, that's a parallel, I think, very, very great. I think it was one of the great movie, is the movie that Tom Hanks made, Philadelphia, and the story about that attorney who who went through as his firm. He worked for a law firm, and they discovered that he had attracted AIDS, and how he dealt with that, and of course the court and all of that. And then his death in Philadelphia, I think, was widely acclaimed film. I think Dallas Buyers Club 2. How do we cope with these kinds of things, and what are people? What's going on with people in the office, and in the kinds of situations they run into? And an excellent choice, excellent choice. I thought I would agree with you. It's a fantastic movie. The Devil Wears Prada, it was a fun movie. I saw it with Stephanie, and my wife loved it. Just absolutely thinks it's one of the best movies ever made. I thought it was very interesting. Of course, I love the stars who are in the movie, the main characters, and I think it's an interesting look. A lot of it also around this idea of people being apprenticed out and being mentored. I think there's a lot of information there, but it's an excellent movie. You got some nice clips over there from it, and you can run into those situations where you have those people who assume almost godlike qualities at the office, or because they own the company, or they're the CEO or whoever, and we find a lot of this where companies will almost become like a cult, and they develop their own kind of culture. This is about someone who is definitely on a power trip beyond belief. And the notion of work-life balance is you're exactly dead on. It wasn't that great of a movie. I would agree with you. I think the point is well made. Sometimes I think that a film like that, they try to make it a bit of fun and put some humor in. So nicely done, Stephanie. I appreciate that. Thank you. Very, very good job. Some good choices here, you guys. I'm very, very impressed. And let's see what Lauren came up with. Joy, that's an interesting movie. I've never seen this movie, but it's going to have to be on my list now. Looks like it would be an interesting. And there are many people out there who struggle through these kinds of issues of parenting and trying to deal with being a single parent. So it's an excellent movie. Good choice, and one I need to see. I don't know. I haven't seen it, but now it's on my list to see. So thank you for sharing that. That's one that I would like to see. And you've got some nice Office Space. Well, this is the second or third time it's come up again. Yeah, there's some comedic but some darker undertones to what's going on there with that company, and a lot of commentary about what's happening in the software business. And we're starting to see now some real pushback of some of the things that have been happening out in Silicon Valley, with a lot of these lawsuits have been brought on there have been a lot of sexual harassment lawsuits brought. There's been a lot of opening up of what's been going on in those companies, and some of it's pretty ugly. And that's the idea that you go to work for somebody like Google or Apple and they own your soul. At a certain point, that's going to kind of waft its way through. But Silicon Valley today remains dominated by alpha males and who have a certain approach. And I think as over time, that's going to get muted or brought down a hair or two. But this is an interesting movie. The stuff that people go through, I think, is a good. The ideas of the subtle cues that are in the office. I think that's an excellent point, Lauren. It's a good insight. I can tell you guys real briefly about my sister. She worked for Southwestern Bell and AT&T. When she worked for AT&T, she started in a cubicle in a big pool. Then she moved to an office. Okay. And then she moved to an office with a window as she was, and then as she left, she had an office with a window with a credenza and seating for some additional storage space, like a cabinet to put her. So she had a kind of a full, nice office. That was a 22-year trek for her, but everything was very regimented, and you only had certain things you could have out on your desk. And it just is just fascinating. This is an excellent, and there's a lot of those cues that you get at work. The Aviator, thank you so much, Lauren. I got to tell you, it's one of my favorites. I every time I get a chance to see it, I think it's just a fascinating story. Other than the movie business, airlines, the airline industry just totally fascinates me. And it all starts when I was about 6 years old and flew for my very first time. And it was a dreamlike experience I've never let go. Today, it's, to me, I'm just saddened. I want to cry when I get on a commercial air flight. But The Aviator, it's a great story of this iconic person, Howard Hughes. And you got some great resources here. So, and the YouTube clips. And he was quite a guy. And of course, died in Las Vegas he died as a recluse. He was a germophobic, and the Aviator really did. The Aviator gives a very truthful depiction of who Howard Hughes was and the kind of mad genius that he was. And so that's a great choice because it tells you a lot about the type of entrepreneur he was and that industry as it was developing. He was also, as Stephanie, Lauren, as you know, and any of you who've seen the movie know, he was also, not only did the guy build TWA, that airline, he also Hughes Tools, which still remains today a pretty major player in the energy business. And in addition to that, he made, I believe, it won an Academy Award for best movie or special effects. But there in The Aviator, when he makes that film, back in the silent film era, this is a guy who was just a genius. And I think the special effects on when he has that plane crash are unbelievable. And so this is a great choice, but he's a great depiction of that kind of mad genius type of person. So good choice, Lauren. The Godfather, another great choice. I love the Godfather trilogy. Not only is it a fantastic film, but it says so much about what happens in family businesses if you really stop and look and watch, and how you kind of the Michael Corleone and his struggle to move them away from a business that was really just basically a bunch of thugs killing people, to moving them into owning companies and industries. And I think what's fascinating is that piece in that movie where they go into Las Vegas and they develop Las Vegas. Of course, the state of Nevada really just started to kick them out. And today, if you go to the casinos, they're owned by entertainment companies, by big conglomerates. They're not owned by the mob. The mob got run out of there when the big money on Wall Street started realizing, gee, we can turn this into a family place, which is what they've tried to do with that location. And good write-up. Of course, the book, I've read it several times. It's wonderful. And Forrest Gump, this is a surprise choice, but I got to tell you, Lauren, I like it because I think it's a great choice because of the sequences about when they go into the shrimp business and then they start buying Apple stock, and he becomes successful, and all along. I think one of the funniest is when, with the T-shirt thing, when that gets created, when he's on that run. So it's a surprise, but a good choice because it's one of those movies that has some pieces that talks about our lives and the meaning of our lives and what is that all about. And here's a guy who was probably a millionaire 10 times over or so, and he's living a pretty simple life, and Forrest Gump is one of my favorite movies. I got to tell you, just period. But I'm glad to see that somebody chose it. So thank you, Lauren. Good choice. and there's some great choices there. Let's take a look at C. We've got Colin, The Pursuit of Happiness. It's an excellent movie, very, very good. You've got a nice YouTube clip, and the synopsis is very good, and the nitty gritty pieces of this movie, it's so realistic, is what I think makes it such a tremendous movie, because you see this guy who's struggling to keep his career together and keep his life together, and to get that product off the ground, and it's a great movie, and it tells you how tough and difficult it is for people who work in trying to get a product off the ground. And you're right. It's a great story about how someone deals with failure, and that's an important piece of this for all of us. We all are going to experience some kind of failure in our business endeavors, in our work as managers. We're going to make a mistake. It's how we deal with it, and we move on. It's good. The Big Short, I'm glad that's a good choice, Colin. Fantastic choice. The Big Short is one of my favorite movies. My wife hates it because some of the financial gizmo financial stuff she doesn't care too much about, but I think it's a fantastic story of some of the things that have happened on Wall Street, and how things have been manipulated. It's a fantastic, interesting movie. You've got some good resources there as far as the books as well. So I'm really excited to see this. This is the all of the complexity that occurred. It's interesting today with the housing bubble and the crash. We're seeing today the movie industry more willing to tell us the story of what happened, but you can go back and look and see, and you will not find a single. You might find one or two movies that really talk about the Depression and how that all came about, and it happened primarily because the movie industry at that time was still pretty much afraid to talk about that, and so we have this event that occurred, the Depression, but we don't have many movies, if at all, about it. We have a few. If you want to see something that kind of skirts that, My Man Godfrey. That movie is one you'd want to see. It kind of skirts that issue, but you really don't see anybody dig into the nitty-gritty like this movie does. And it's interesting because we have movies about the Korean War, World War II. We start having movies about the Vietnamese War, and movies like The Big Short that talk about these things that have happened on Wall Street. And these movies about Wall Street are endemic with something that's happened, and that is business has become a spectator sport. Back in the day when I was in school, you had the Wall Street Journal. You had, none of you probably even know who Louis Rukeyser is. He was on PBS on Friday nights. He talked about the market, and that was it. You didn't have MSNBC going 24 hours a day looking at markets. You didn't have all these business programs. You didn't have, MSNBC was nothing but 24 hours a day. Well, all about business. You just didn't have it happening. You didn't have people watching the world markets and all that. So business has become a spectator sport, and we're seeing now, about 10 years removed, that swath of movies that are starting to look at what happened there in the financial crisis. So it's a great choice, and I'd have to say I'd rate it right up there with a 5. So it's a nice choice, Colin. Very good. Another one is Wall Street. Again, fantastic movie. There's so many great lines from it, and the acting in it is absolutely off the charts. And the dilemma posed by that sharing of information and the problems. It's a story. It's a morality tale, if ever, but also a morality tale that's a message to us, and it says be careful. What yeah, and essentially don't get beguiled by money and power and those things. Those can disappear overnight. So it's an excellent movie. The acting's fantastic. The Social Network, of course, again, one of those. Like I said, it's the scene that sticks in my head from The Social Network is when I think they rent the house out in California and they just tear the thing to bits. And that scene and the other where they with the corporate raiders who've come in, the corporate money that's come in, and Zuckerberg begins to edge out his partners, and he begins to put together these agreements that start to skin some of his friends, and how that all happens. So I think The Social Network's it's a fantastic movie. We've got some great resources there, a good YouTube clip, and I think we're going to see maybe a few more. We haven't seen anything yet about Bill Gates, and I doubt that we will. He's not an exciting character. Zuckerberg is just one of those people that was an interesting character. Certainly Steve Jobs. I think we're going to see more movies about him. And it's interesting, and I would encourage all of you to go back, and since you've been to IMDb or you've been to TCMDB, or start to look for some movies about Edison, about Rockefeller, about Vanderbilt, and see what movies are out there. And of course, one of my favorites, and of course, and probably as many people say, is the greatest movie. Of course, the famous line, Rosebud, Rosebud, Rosebud. That Citizen Kane, which is supposedly about a media mogul. Go back and look, and you're not going to see as many treatments of those people still, because the movie industry was so beholden to the government. They were so censored. They were so careful about portraying life in the United States, and they were very concerned about alienating their friends back, their friends who financed the pictures. And this movie is a good one. I think we're going to see a lot of these. Social Network, excellent movie. I thought it had some very good. Sorry that you're not. Sorry you didn't have much of a high rating on it. I don't think that that it's true that everybody has to be a what in order to rise to the top. But I think it captures a lot of the spirit of what was happening, and to a certain extent is still happening out there in Silicon Valley's people. Moneyball is Colin, thank you so much. Great choice. I love Moneyball. I think it's my wife hated the movie, and she said, drag me to these stupid movies anymore. But Moneyball is one of my favorites. I think it's fascinating as you see this change in baseball. And of course, the great scene there is I think the opening scene where you've got all these old time baseball scouts saying, well, yeah, he looks like a baseball player. Yeah, is his hair right, this or that. He has a name that sounded better, versus these analytics. And the proof of that is the young man who is the president of operations there for the Chicago Cubs, who used analytics to break the curse of the Red Sox, okay? And then used analytics, and I'm talking about Theo Epstein, who is a genius. He is an absolute total genius, and broke the curse of the Red Sox, broke the curse of the Cubs. He's a guy that I think is probably one of the most underrated managers in the world. Think about it, what he's dealing with, and he's infused that. And the story of Moneyball is how they tried it there in Oakland originally to begin to take that team, and now today, if you look at baseball, if you're a baseball fan like me, everything is so analytically driven. Everything is, all these players there's so many moving parts. It's fascinating. So it's a great choice. There's some good books out there about it. And of course, the Billy Bean, and I think he was he's Billy Bean is, well, you know, he's who he is. He's a genius, and he understood about statistics. Baseball is it has always been a statistician's paradise. People who are baseball fans love statistics. I don't know what it is about the game that just brings that out, but they're just, and you can get people arguing about the statistics of hitting and pitching and so forth. And it's fascinating. And today when I watch a baseball game, and my wife and I are huge Cardinal fans, I'm just blown away by the analytics that are there and their discussion analytics. So good choice. And what we're seeing is this is carrying over into the regular business world. That's why in this course I've talked so much about dashboards and the analytical cube and looking at these transactions and using these to see transactions and see what's happening with our customers and use business intelligence to get a picture of what's going on out there in the world. So good choice. Very, very good choice, Colin. Thank you. Let's see what else he got. He chose Moneyball, and I think that's about it. Let's pop on over and we'll see Devin. And The Wolf of Wall Street, that isn't, yeah, it's got some sketchy stuff. Okay, they do some naughty things in Wolf of Wall Street, and it's one of those I viewed at home. Frankly, my luck. I teach Sunday school. I'm a Baptist. What can I say? And so to see a movie like that, knowing what's in there, I'm going to look at it from a more of an analytical point and from more of kind of getting a sense of what's happening out there and seeing some. So my luck, I'd go see it, and 3 or 4 of the deacons of my church would be there. So it's one of these I've seen. My wife did not like it because of some of that stuff. But what it tells you is a lot about that culture. And so I think you're quite right there, Devin, in your analysis Devin's analysis about the culture. This culture of just this frenetic craziness, and people taking money and going wild with it. And it's what's happening with Silicon Valley and with so many of these entrepreneurs, and what's happening with the trading that's going on Wall Street is not too far away from some of the craziness that ensued with the growth of the petroleum industry, and some of the craziness that ensued, obviously, that with the start of the movie industry back at the turn of the 20th century. So this is an excellent choice. And it just tells you about the culture and the craziness. And we've all probably worked at some places where people did some wild things, but that type of pressurized environment and the temptations that it brings about to be dishonest is a real morality tale for all of us. So it's a good choice. The Big Short is another one of those. Again, we've talked about that. Fascinating, very thorough, very well done. The housing crisis and that whole is a story that needs to be told over and over again, because it is so it's so symptomatic of a lot of what's wrong with how we do business in this country. Social Network, a good choice. We've talked about that. And then Jobs, again. Again, an excellent movie. And I think there are going to be a lot more treatments of him, some more books, some more documentaries, some more dramas about him. He's a fascinating character, and again, just an absolute genius. And I think as I've said, I think he'll be an iconic figure. But when you think about it for a moment, he changed the computer industry. He changed the telephone, the telephone telephone industry, and he changed movies. He brought about the advent of the cell phone, the smartphone. He brought about the advent of, it really changed how people handled computers and their design and what they should be, and the interaction of that machine with human being. And certainly when he was at Pixar, he was a fantastic force. So he changed, he was a big change agent in 3 industries. I don't know that we've really absorbed yet the full impact of who and what he was. Is an interesting man, and had some, as the movies show, he had some difficulties with his family life. He had some difficulties with his personal life, and interestingly, lived in the same house he lived in when he first made it big. He never went and bought a big gigantic mansion or anything like that. He lived pretty much in the same neighborhood. He had to have security and so forth, but he pretty much stayed who he was. And he had some very interesting mixture of ideas of Eastern meditation, transcendentalist thought, and some other kinds of ideas. Interesting fellow, to say the least. So Devin's some good choices there. And we'll pop over here. We'll see what Yang Ping. Wall Street, yeah, good choice there, and some good resources. The Insider, that is a excellent movie. I've seen it a couple of times. And it is quite good. Michael Mann did a fantastic job with that movie, and the acting is indeed it is very, very good. Tucker, now this is Yang Ping. I want to say this. Tucker, I think, is a very highly underrated movie, and I think it's the story of Tucker Motors and his battle with General Motors and and Chrysler to he produced this car that was a superior product, but how those forces all kind of eventually just kind of clamped him down. And as I've said before, we know this in most industries, particularly highly capitalized industries like automobile production. We tend to get an oligopoly situation, 3 to 6 firms that dominate those firms, and we've had these great. The only way we've had any of the additional choices has been the advent of foreign automobile makers. So it's an interesting movie. Yang Ping, I also want to say, I salute you, my friend. You chose Citizen Kane. It's one of my favorites. I think it's a great story. I like Citizen Kane on a lot of levels, folks, and I think it's worth seeing. Number one, it's got some compelling storytelling. Orson Welles is a genius. He was a cinematic genius in the movie. If you take off some of the blinders of living in 2017 and just sit and watch the movie, you're going to see unfold the story of this man's life, and in a way that you rarely do you ever see this. But I think the important thing is what you come down to is this question of, why are we here? What's the meaning of our lives? And can we? He was obviously a person who literally at the end of his life had sequestered himself in a castle and had stuff collected from all over the world. But his personal relationships were totally blown away. And the movie is supposed to be modeled after Wilson Randolph Hearst, really our very first media mogul. At one point, William Randolph Hearst, I think he owned about 30% of all of the papers in the United States. He's a very powerful person, and he built this incredible house out in California. It's like a castle, and filled it with all kinds of things from all over the world. So it's a superb movie, and it's a fantastic movie, I think, in terms of taking a look and asking ourselves, about what really is important in our lives. And of course, from the scripture, the question of what does it profit a person to gain the world and lose their soul? I'd say if you'd want to see one that would kind of be the flip of that, I think The Good Earth, which is, again, you gotta kind of take your blinders off. The Good Earth is a fantastic story. You may have had to read it in high school, but it's the story of these peasants and how they go through and they endure in China and they endure into the 20th century and how they build this family business, and then how the young people, the heirs to the business, begin to fritter the thing away, and how people can get corrupted with wealth and material goods. So it's a great film. And again, thank you. It's a Wonderful Life, Young Ping. I salute you again, because that is another one of my favorite movies. I think It's a Wonderful Life is another one of those that is, and it's a Christmas picture. But if you stop and you look back at it, it was really not intended to be a Christmas picture. It was meant to be a picture about how we all need to work together, how we're all interdependent on each other, and the value of human life. And when it came out, it wasn't that. It's kind of gained some momentum over the years. It used to be something people would have to see late at night, on the local TV stations around Christmas time. It's a great movie. And I think it's for me as a believer, okay, it tells me that our lives have great meaning because our lives are interdependent with so many. And of course, the great commandment was not only, love the Lord your God, but love your neighbor as yourself. And I think it's a fantastic, and these two men are juxtaposed, and as they jockey around, one an institution builder, that of course is George Bailey, and then the other is this evil real estate mogul, rich man who wants to exploit everybody. You get to see how the world would be if you weren't here. And so I think it's a feel good, but it has some great messages and some fantastic acting. So Yang Ping, you've chosen a couple of movies I really like, and thank you so much. We'll move on through it, and then I'm going to stop here a while and see if folks, Wall Street money, Wall Street, okay, money never sleeps. What? Never sleeps. Two. There's a series that's been building there. I think number one I like better than number two. Both are excellent movies. Oliver Stone is a fantastic director, and I think telling us what's going on and how that whole process of accumulating wealth, the love of money, as the Bible says, is the root of all evil, and boy is it ever. And I think you can really see that. And I think the Wolf of Wall Street is another, again, got a lot of naughty stuff, okay, but it tells you a lot about how crazy people can get when they pursue money rather than pursuing the development of a better product or better service. I think the saving grace of somebody, say like a Mark Zuckerberg, is that for him, he has a passion for his product and what he's doing, and he has a vision for that. It's not about the money for him. And I think that's what sets him apart from so many of the people who are out there today. Inside Job, another, again, this is a great movie. Again, there's lots happening in the financial industry. It's always a good target. It's interesting. And will we ever see some great movies about the Depression and the causes of it? Probably not, because people weren't sure what was happening when it occurred. But we do know that it occurred. But I think there's some movies out there, but I think it's one that's waiting. Right now, the people who've looked at the Great Depression of the 30s are economists, and they're looking at it a very sterile way. Now, if you have great-grandparents or for example, my grandparents who are gone now, but but remembered the Depression. It was a very frightening thing. And it was a lot of stuff happening that we understand now, but we just didn't understand at the time. But so I think Inside Job is excellent, excellent, excellent movie. Good choice. Saving Mr. Bank. I think that's a very. I've never seen that movie. I haven't seen it, I got to admit, and it's one I'm going to have to see. Yeah, 3.5. Okay, but I'll take your word for it. But I'm going to have to go see that movie. I think it involves Disney, as you mentioned there, yeah. And Tom Hanks is in it. I'm a Tom Hanks freak. I love his movies, but it's one I just haven't gone to see yet. Probably because I just haven't gotten around to it. But thank you so much, Paul, for all of some good choices there. So what Taylor had for us today. And Taylor, it's the social network. I'm seeing this is all generational. So you guys are picking up on that. The Social Network, a good movie. Again, I think it tries to it depicts, I think, a lot of what was going on there. The financial industry has been a lot easier. It's a lot easier to pick some of that stuff than it is that somebody's developing software or they're having chugging contests where they're doing programming and stuff like that. But again, I go back to the scene when they have the rental house and the craziness of that lifestyle and the craziness of what those folks are doing, and how Zuckerberg very craftily he's in this mode, and you're left where he's not looking so heroic. But as he's gone, I think as he's gotten married, I believe he has a child now. As he's matured, as he's interfaced with Wall Street, he has become a person who has shown some real personal growth, especially when he stood up to Wall Street and said, I'm developing I have a vision for what Facebook can be. I'm into the long term, not the short term. And that's his credit. Plus, you got to think about the fact all these things about fake news, all this stuff that's going on here, and he's having to deal with it. And I think it would be interesting to really be able to take a peek in, be the fly on the wall, and see how he's dealing with all that, because they're under tremendous pressure there with the United States government and with other governments around the world, and the issues of people committing suicide on Facebook. They have a tough situation they're dealing with there, and I think things I didn't even foresee. Office Space, again, great movie, great movie, and the typical cubicle kind of setting, and there's a good synopsis you've done here, Taylor. Excellent. Smartest Men in the Room, Enron, again, one of those great morality tales. Sadly, very sadly, the man who was CEO at Enron proclaimed himself to be a Christian, and made no bones about it. And it's very sad about what happened to him. And it's a real wake up call for us. I always tell students, all of mine, be cautious and understand that what you do reflects on our Lord. If you're a believer, and if people know that, be cautious. And again, it's a story, and boy, a lot of people got hurt by Enron. It's a very, very tragic tale, and it's another words. The Big Short, here's another one. As you can see, we're not seeing a lot of positive movies about business here. It's interesting. We're not seeing a lot of there's not much inspiration in some of these movies, is there? It's interesting. And what I've detected, particularly with undergraduate students, is a little bit different view than those students I had in the 90s and the 80s. Yeah, I've been teaching that long, and their viewpoints. So I think we have some work to do as business people. But thank you, Taylor. Some good choices of movies, and I think some great, you guys have done an excellent job. I'm just thrilled with what I'm seeing here. Let's see what Coy, of course, has got Wall Street. Of course, that's, again, it brings together a lot of those elements of a morality play. And it's interesting here. The business leaders and business owners are not the heroes of society. The closest thing we've had to a hero, I would say, or people considered heroic, I would say would probably be Steve Jobs. Not Bill Gates. And then I'd say Steve Jobs and Warren Buffett. And Warren Buffett, of course, is so widely respected. And I think it's fascinating how Buffett is just seen as this really, really good person, really fine person. Jobs is seen as this kind of this crazy person, but he made the world a better place. And those are the only two people as business people that I see out there that people really admire. As a whole, you just don't see it. I think it's some of the the coverage that people get. We're not doing too good a job of telling our stories about the great things that happen. But the truth is that much of the innovation and much of the job growth and much of the many good things that happen through business happens in smaller companies. Okay. And so a lot of those fantastic stories that are out there are not getting told. Citizen Kane, again, Coy, I got to tell you, I'm with you there. Fantastic movie. It's one of my all-time favorite movies, and most certainly I think it says so much because it makes us come back to that question of treating people like things and things like people. What's a business? What is it intended to do? Why does it exist? Integrity in our dealings with others, and ultimately the fact that you can't take it with you, but you certainly what you leave behind, the legacy you will leave behind will not be all the things. It will be the relationships and the viewpoints of those relationships. So I think it's an excellent choice. Social Network, again, seeing some patterns here. The Big Short, again, another one of those, and this is generational office space, very much so. I think again, that makes sense that you would choose this because these are things that are out there, and you see then Office Space again is an excellent movie, quite good. I've seen it a couple of times, like maybe once, maybe twice. And look, I'm kind of a movie fanatic, as you could probably tell. But I've grown to the point now where my wife says I take a lot of the fun out of it because I'm taking notes and analyzing, doing all this stuff, and it makes her crazy. So a lot of times I just have to download something and see it and watch it. But I think there are so many insights in this film. It's a lot of subtle stuff. And I'm gonna enjoy going through some of these YouTube clips that you guys have posted. Folks have posted. And let's see what Michelle posted here. And see, you've got Invictus. That's interesting. Interesting. Now. I want to say this, Michelle. I think this is an interesting choice, and I'm just thrilled that you chose it. One of the things that we maybe have not done is give you enough about business history. Apartheid, which was a system in South Africa, where you had two separate and very unequal societies. Apartheid was a big social issue back in the 1960s and 70s. That people around the world were starting to say, apartheid is an evil, it needs to stop. And literally the Africans were separated from the Europeans. The Africans had a set of cities and zones where they could live, and the Europeans had a set of cities and zones.
And there was a lot of angst in the United States about what to do about this. And this, of course, was in an era where the United States was, people were saying, you know, what about the abuses of human rights and that type of thing? And to their credit, and I'm very proud of this, the movement, what was called the disinvestment movement, started with a bunch of business students at Columbia University who said, here's how we put a stop to this. We start to shame every American corporation that's invested in South Africa, get them to pull their money out, and the South African government will get the message. And I can tell you, I'm very proud of it. When I was working on my doctorate, I went to several meetings. We had a group of people there at OU that helped to do it with the petitions that were put together. It was business students who started petitioning, writing their Congress people, and buying a share of stock in a company so they could go to a shareholder meeting or write in to the shareholders. And it was business students who started the disinvestment movement and ultimately led to the end of apartheid in South Africa. And that is one of those little known things, but it started with a bunch of business students at Columbia University who said, the way to do it is to get the investment pulled out. So I'm thrilled that you found that you pulled Invictus, because I think Nelson Mandela is such a wonderful story, a great story of a great human, one of the great people who've lived ever, and a fantastic, fantastic person who really exemplifies the kind of human being that we want to be in a leadership position. And so I think I'm thrilled you chose this, because I think that the story of the disinvestment movement is one of those that needs to be told. And I'm very proud. I was part of it. The apartheid system in South Africa, the only words to describe it was evil, satanic, wrong, bad. And the students at Columbia, and they were business students, MBA and doctoral students, who started that whole process, really had impact. And we had a group here, I was at OU working on my doctorate when this was going on, my master's, and the battle. We went to the business dean and really got chewed out, and then we'd buy a share of stock so we could write shareholders. We did those things. I'm really proud of that, because that was eventually what got them to stop apartheid. The government there said, people are pulling their money out of South Africa. We cannot continue to do business like that. So it's a very inspirational movie, and a picture of the good things we can do in business if we care to do it. Then Enron, of course, is another great choice. We've talked about that a whole lot. And again, that business, the truth is that like most bubbles, like Enron did, on using accounting tricks, or the tech bubble of the late 1990s, these are typically based upon folks' greed and folks. I think it's been a few months ago, I saw the movie that was about Bernie Madoff, and that movie, and it was fascinating, because you would think that people, when they get their reports and they see that their stock returns are in a straight linear trend, you might go, this doesn't look right. But people get greedy, and people turn a blind eye. And of course, Madoff is enormously, did an enormous amount of harm. Wolf of Wall Street and others, and with just all that craziness that went on, and it really does depict that kind of crazed and fervid environment. And when people make money, how crazy they can get. And look, this is not too much different. It's a lot tamer, But if you are interested, and you don't get all the gory details, but The Great Gatsby, some of the works by F. Scott Fitzgerald, some of the works by Ernest Hemingway tell about the so-called jazz age, the so-called roaring 20s, when there's a lot of money being thrown around, a lot of craziness. So I think, it's, as the Bible says, the love of money is the root of all evil. What can you possibly say more than that? So a good choice there, Michelle. Thank you very much. Pop over here, Daniel. We'll see what Daniel chose. I'm just so happy. This is the founder. It's an excellent about McDonald's and the story, and I think it's a interesting. I've seen it. I didn't give it that. I didn't really take a lot of notes and so forth. I just kind of watched it and let it kind of wash over me the first time. And I'm gonna have to go back and see this now. And the story of how he changed this whole industry, and the story. It's the story of McDonald's, and really the story of fast food, and I think I'd say this. You mentioned Michael Keaton here. He is one of those very fine actors who can inhabit a role. And I can't remember. It's a movie that was back in the 80s, but he was an automobile worker whose company got shut down and taken over by a Japanese firm. And then there's another where he was a stay-at-home dad. I think it was called Mr. Mom or something. Michael Keaton is one of my favorite actors. This is a good choice. I think a very, very good choice. Arbitrage is a good one. It's very subtle, but the kinds of playing and the risks that these people will take. And you've got some fine actors in that movie. I watched it one time, and that's what I typically they'll do is I'll just call it a movie. I'll just kind of watch it one time and I'll wash over me. And I take these seriously as an opportunity to learn and to see. And I always like to compare what I see in the movie with what I might read about what's happening in industry through the Wall Street Journal, the trade publications, or whatever. It's again, it's about that story. The Company Men, again, one of those about the meaning of work and how people define themselves by what they do, and it's quite a good movie. Excuse me. The story of the economic downturn, and we have yet to really see a spate of movies that tell us about the human impact. We see the things like The Big Short and all that, but these movies and I can't remember, I haven't seen it. It's the movie about the guy that goes from company to company and they lay off people, and I can't remember what the name of it is, and I apologize, but I'm gonna the actor. Oh, my brain's going blank. I've got to see that movie. I've heard a lot of good things about it. This is a good movie. Thank you very much. Margin Call is another one of those. Okay. It's again, this kind of risk-laden environment in which these firms operate and the human impact of them. And I think Glenn Ross is another one of those movies. I've been surprised I haven't seen anybody name that yet. But that's one of those that about those people who are selling securities in a boilerplate room. And I think it's so realistic, it almost makes you want to cry. Yeah, well, here it is. Glengarry Glen Ross, one of my favorite movies about business of all time. I think the Kevin Spacey and Jack Lemmon are fantastic in this, and they had a personal relationship outside. They did 3 films together, and in fact, Kevin Spacey saw it today. In fact, has done a tribute on TCM about Jack Lemmon. Jack Lemmon was a fantastic, incredibly fantastic actor. Glengarry Glen Ross really captures that tough, nitty-gritty kind of environment where you're working for people who take no prisoners, and you're in sales, and it's a superb movie, and it really makes you think about, how do we treat people at work, and how do we have companies that are fit for human beings to inhabit sometimes, and sometimes we just don't. It is a fantastic movie, and you're right. There are no need for stunts or anything like that. The acting, the drama, the grittiness of it, the pain is just absolutely on top of it. We've seen a lot of movies here, and let me say this just as it pops into my head. I really encourage you to if you ever get a chance, go see or read the play Death of a Salesman, because Death of a Salesman, it was a pretty heroic piece of art when it was written, because it was at a time when business could do no wrong. We've come, and since the end of the Second World War to the point now, we've come from a point where business leaders were highly regarded, and a career in business was something that was really seen as a very positive thing, to now to the point where, well, you see how people tend to have very, very dim views of corporate America. And a lot of this is our fault, our problem, our doing. And so I think it's a good choice. Daniel, thank you so much. That's a fantastic choice. I love that movie, and the acting is just incredible. We'll see if we get Bryce. We talked Bryce, and let me see. Get Roberts to come up here and open it up, because I do want to see what you did. I'm going to try to open it with Adobe. Let's see if it's going to let me open it up. This may be a problem on my end, Robert. Let me see if you're here. Robert, you're here, and I'm going to unmute you. I'm going to unmute you, and would you share with us the movies you selected? I am so sorry, and this is probably on. What movies did you choose?
Can you hear me?
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, certainly. Yes.
I chose Glengarry Glen Ross.
Okay.
And The Big Short.
Okay.
And Wall Street.
Mm-hmm.
And what were the other ones? Enron, Smartest Guys in the Room.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think of the last one. Can't remember the last one.
Well, that's okay. Of those that you've named, which one was your favorite?
Wall Street's a classic,
Mm-hmm.
but The Big Short.
Okay.
The way they were able to explain everything.
Uh-huh.
In simpler terms, explain such a complicated issue.
Okay.
In simpler terms, I thought that was a really creative and interesting way to explain such a complicated issue. So,
okay.
And it was pretty funny too.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. It'd be a great teaching tool for teaching people about derivatives, wouldn't it?
Yeah, just about that whole financial crisis in general.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's anyone can understand it after watching that movie for sure.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm going to go around the room a little bit and thank you so much. I want to Colin, I want to get you to unmute for just a second. And of the movies that you shared with us, which one was your favorite?
I would have to say Moneyball.
Okay. And what was it about Moneyball that made it your favorite?
Well, first, I'm a big baseball fan anyway,
Okay.
so that attracted me. But
Okay.
the whole idea that they didn't have the money was short compared to other teams in the league, but they still were able to get a team together. That was good because of the analytics.
Okay. Yeah, I like that movie too, and I think that you remember at the first of the movie when they have the scouts and they're talking about the prospects.
Yes.
And we've talked about in here about how views of a company strategy, the kind of nature versus nurture. We have the best people in the world, so we're a great company. Versus the Porter model, the relative power with your suppliers and so forth. So I'm a big baseball fan too. Who's your favorite team?
Atlanta Braves.
Oh, you're an Atlanta Braves fan. Okay, I'm a Cardinal fan and a Yankee fan. So I have to say, I've seen a lot of the Braves, and I used to see them when they were the only thing on the old TBS, and they were, you could get them on this is long before probably you were even born. You could see back in the 70s that the Braves were on almost all the time. So if you want to see baseball almost every day of the week, you could, but it was only through them. But the Braves, they had some great teams in the 90s, didn't they?
Yes.
Yeah. Who were the three pitchers they had that were so fantastic?
Smoltz, Glavine, and I can't think of the third one.
Yeah, but they went to I think 5 or 6 World Series or something like that. I think they won one World Series, didn't they?
I was very young then, so.
Okay, but they were in and out of the World Series all the time, and they have quite a history there. I'm like I've said, I'm a Cardinal fan, kind of a Yankee fan too. But Moneyball is a fascinating movie. It's a good. I think it's an interesting movie. So I'm like you. I liked it a whole lot. So thank you for sharing very much. I'm going to go over here to Devin. I see you're here, and I'm going to unmute you. Devin, tell us of those your favorite movie. Kind of expand a little bit for us on the movie that you like the best. I hope I unmuted you. Oh, let me unmute you. Devin, you still there?
Hello?
Yeah, Devin. I was gonna. Is this Devin?
Yes.
Okay, good. Your favorite film. Elaborate a little bit for us on the film you chose as your favorite of the business movies.
Out of my favorite would probably be The Pursuit of Happiness. One, I've always liked Will Smith as an actor, and I just like the story behind Mr. Gardner. It was just a very, very moving, just to see like, hey, he did struggle and he did have to go through all of that to get where he was, and it's always nice to see that.
Yeah, and he, I think I thought that he's such a, I think he's a very highly underrated actor.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So it was that's one of those movies about business on a very personal level, and I think a very real level. That was one of the things I think about it that's interesting. So I appreciate you sharing that with us, because so many times these movies are big, the Big Short or Wolf of Wall Street, or these big movies, and then you have this really is a very kind of quiet movie, but told about the struggles and the struggles that everybody goes through, and all the employees we have and people that we work for or with go through them, and so it's a good. I'm glad you chose that. Let me pop through here for a minute. I do appreciate your comments. Let me unmute Michelle for a second. Michelle, I think I've unmuted you. Give us a little more insights on the movie that you liked the least of the ones that you chose, and why you didn't care too much for it, or expand on some of that?
The one that I liked the least? I would say actually Enron, Smartest Guys in the Room, was the one that I cared for the least.
Okay.
I was hoping for a little more like substance. I thought some of it was a bit stylized.
Okay.
And just some of the dramatizations that they had in it.
Okay.
And so I was hoping, kind of a more like The Big Short, where it gave you more detailed description
Had more
of what happened.
You were hoping for more of a documentary feel?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think I was. And so maybe that was part of it, is I
Okay.
was just going in looking for something else.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you very much. And let me see. I'm gonna unmute Stephanie for a minute. Stephanie, let me ask you just the films that you chose, the films that you selected. Which one have you seen all of them more than once, or just one time?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I've seen them all more than once.
Okay. Which one have you seen the most?
I would say the one I've seen the most is The Pursuit of Happiness.
Okay. And what was the draw for you to see it?
I just really like Will Smith.
Okay. I would agree, he's a good actor. And what part of the what part of the story resonated with you the most?
I would say the fact that he's not like your typical story. So he was struggling, homeless, and the fact that he literally went from the bottom and worked his way up. That was just my favorite.
Okay. Good. Well, I appreciate that, everybody. Thank you so much, and some good comments. I hope this has been a good experience for you. And let me recommend also, if you've not done so, you can go over to Amazon. There are some really very succinct and really good books for analyzing movies and how to look at them and to analyze it. And I want to encourage you to do that. And you guys have chosen some great movies, and your comments and the YouTube clips that you've got so forth are pretty good ones. I'm going to go back over here for just a second, and I know you're not dying to hear this, but I'm going to try to if I can find mine. I think I had, and if you may want to mute some of your phones there. I think this is me. Here you go. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Give me a second. I'm in class.
Oh, okay. This is the exercise. Let's see if I can put mine. Yeah, here's my take on it, and I just wanted to share that with you so that you can understand. I didn't ask you to do something I wouldn't do myself. I've got 5 movies that I chose, and of course, again, you can see this is a generational thing. I chose the Executive Suite. 1 or 2 of you have chosen It's a Wonderful Life, so good one there. House of Strangers is another. The Man in the Gray Flannel Suit, and Citizen Kane. So It's a Wonderful Life and Citizen Kane are 2 that that have been mentioned here already tonight. Executive Suite from 1954 is an excellent movie. I really encourage you to see it because it's very prophetic in terms of this issue and that we're struggling with of what's the role of a corporation. Is it just to make money for the shareholders, or is a corporation meant to serve a greater purpose? And you get the movie. I love it because it gives you some different frames around these people, and it's about a company whose CEO dies, and then there's this struggle over the weekend to figure out who's going to succeed him. And embedded in it is the question of what's the purpose of a company. And for the time in 1954, it was a pretty daring movie because people, just didn't criticize business. And William Holden, who's one of my favorite actors of all time, is in the movie. I encourage you to see it. It's got some dated things in it, but if you really sit back and watch, you're going to see that the questions that they're struggling with there are some of the same issues that we're dealing with, like the meaning of work, or what's their social responsibility of a company ethics. There's the cinematography in it is fantastic. So some great acting in it. It's one of my favorite. It's a Wonderful Life. We've talked about that, so I don't think we need to add two more. House of Strangers is an interesting movie because several of you tonight talked about The Godfather, and the House of Strangers, 1949, is a movie that a lot of film critics believe is the progenitor of the Godfather trilogy. And House of Strangers is about a guy. He goes off to prison. He comes back. It's this family, and they're a mob, and the father got betrayed by the brothers, and this one brother who went to prison comes back and has to reconcile, and then begins to. And it's a family drama, but how they work that process out. But it's also got some. It got some shoot 'em up kinds of things. So, and many people believe it is kind of the progenitor of the Godfather trilogy. So it's worth seeing. It's got some great actors. The Man in the Gray Flannel Suit is a 1956 movie, and if you like Gregory Peck at all, if you even know who he is, he's a fantastic author. And this is a story of a man who is a corporate executive. And he, in the Second World War, he fathers a child with an Italian woman, comes home, gets married, goes up the corporate ladder, and then this woman finds him and his daughter, and he has to, I believe, a son. And and this issue of him coming to terms with, he's lived kind of a double life, and his wife, and I'm not going to give you a spoiler on how it ends. But the Man in the Gray Flannel Suit was a movie that a lot of people said asked some tough questions about what do we do to get ahead, and at what point are we almost amoral in the way we behave in a corporation, and I think it's a great movie. Finally, of course, Citizen Kane. Several of us have chosen that. Enough said, but those are my 5 movies. You can see I'm quite dated. I think the oldest one I've got is 56, and all these other movies you've mentioned I've seen multiple times. I love them. These are my 5. These are my 5 favorites. I chose them. I would have to say I chose Citizen Kane. Was a tough one for me over Executive Suite. I love Executive Suite. Citizen Kane's a fantastic movie. And it was a tough choice for me, but I almost have to go with that because I just think the Orson Welles is an absolute genius. And if you really want to see some fantastic movies, dig into some of his work. He is a monumental figure in the movie business and does things in black and white that are just incredible, and is a tremendous actor and a fantastic director. Executive Suite's a great movie. It's a short one. You can go see it. I like it. In fact, way back, one of the first classes I took was an org behavior class. We used Executive Suite as a case. And over the years, as I watch it time and time again, I see more things. And in that movie, it focuses the question of the meaning of work, the relationship of a business to its community and its suppliers and its customers, and why a firm exists. And these are important questions. And of course they fly. The IT is of course embedded in all of them. Folks, listen, I want to tell you, I was so thrilled with with the work that you did here and that I saw, and I do appreciate it. Thank you so much for sharing. I hope you found this a beneficial exercise. And like I'd say again, I hope maybe this will give you some guidance in terms of watching, using some of these movies, not only entertainment, but maybe a little case study for yourself to grow as a professional and see them in a little more engaging fashion. So I'm going to close off my thing here. Anybody having anything they want to share for the good of the order?
Nope.
Okay. Well, listen, I'm going to end this. Again, thank you very, very much. And I'll be doing the grading and getting the stuff turned in. I'm just absolutely thank you so much for doing such a good job of this exercises. Your case studies have been good. It's been a real pleasure to have you guys in class. And thank you so much for making it a great experience for me. So have a good one. And I'll stop the sharing and stop the recording, and we'll go from there. Thanks a lot, everybody, and continue on your journey. And as you work on that MBA, and I look forward to seeing all of you at graduation. Take care now.